How's it going? I'm going to show you today what to do for your color wheel assignment. Now, hopefully you were able to take notes in class when I explained how the color wheel should be set up. Today, in this video, I'm going to show you how to go about painting your color wheel. So this is one of the diagrams that I drew. Let's see if I can, if that, nope, that doesn't help at all. Let's see if that does. Barely. So anyways, it's a 4-inch diameter circle. So if you're using a compass, these little numbers in here, you'll dial it into 2. And then that's going to give you the radius. So when I put this in the middle of my paper, I lightly drew a circle. Because the radius is 2 inches, that means the diameter, the distance all the way across is double. So it's 4. So we have a 4-inch diameter circle, and there's 12 little notches. And remember, we want them kind of evenly spaced. So we take, I want a colored Sharpie. So we made marks, thinking about it like a clock. We made marks at 12, 6, 3, and 9, like that. And then we just put 2 more evenly spaced notches in between each of these 4. So that will give us 12. So with 12 evenly spaced notches, that gives us a spot for the 3 primary colors, the 3 secondary colors, and the 6 tertiary colors that are between those. So more importantly, in the bottom, we have these, I was calling them gradient scales. So it's really the practice of blending colors. So in the first rectangle, now each of these, when you set up your color wheel, I would draw these first, and it's a 1/2 inch from the bottom and a 1/2 inch in between each one. The gradient scales themselves, the size is 1 inch by 10 inches. So your paper is a 12 by 18, and you're going to have it like this. So you'll have 1 inch here and 1 inch here, and that's going to be your margin. So there's a 1/2 inch in between each of these, right? And then this is 1 inch by 10 inches. So I'm not going to show you today. I'm not going to sit here and paint this whole thing, because that's going to take a significant amount of time. It's not hard. It's just time consuming. What I am going to show you is I'm going to show you how to approach your color mixing and how to tackle those gradient scales underneath. Somebody in class asked me today if this is a color wheel like other color wheels that they've done in other classes. And I mean, the color wheel is the color wheel, and it's always like, it doesn't change. So yeah, the color wheel is the same, but these gradient scales underneath are practices in how to mix paint, which is going to be a handy skill to have if you're in a drawing and painting 3 or 4 class, or even if you're in a 3D design class and you're doing a project that needs a specific color scheme. So being able to mix paint is going to carry through if you take any more art classes, or in lots of other classes, that anything that deals with color, this is going to be something that's important to know, because the colors behave kind of the same no matter what the medium is. So I'm going to start. And before I start painting, all of my scrappy doos, I've got them carbon copied. Took about 40 minutes to go all the way around. But I've got it done and it's accurate and it's ready to paint now. So I have a very small brush, the smallest brush that I have a smaller brush. And I'm probably going to want to use it because I've got some small areas in here. I didn't put it back. Surprise, surprise. Darn it. Dang it, Bobby. Oh, well. Oh. I almost put it back. It was right next to my brush pouch. So I'll probably end up using this brush, which is really, really small. This one's a little bit thicker. So I might use this for when I do my gradient scales. I'll use this for my actual color wheel. Because remember, not only do I have to have the 3 primary, the 3 secondary, and the tertiary colors, but also for each one of those, I need to create a tint, which is adding white, and a shade, which is adding black. So some of those are going to be very small areas to put in. So like I said, before I start painting, I've got some paper towel for me to hold. I've got some paper towel sitting here on the table to rest my brushes on, because please don't just leave your brushes sitting in the water like that. That's death to your paintbrush. So I've got a bucket of water. I've got my paint palette. And most importantly, I've got this, which is my plan for what colors I'm going to need for these 4 gradient scales underneath. So I've thought now about what colors I need. I've written it down on a scrap piece of paper. And so now I know what colors I need before I even start to fill my palette. So let's start with, I'm going to make a tertiary color on the color wheel. So let's do like a yellow green. So my colors might be a little bit different. I'm using a phthalo green. The green that I have in the classroom is like a sap green, or like a it's a little bit lighter of a green. So I'm going to put my green and my yellow. And I've got them close to each other. And what I'm going to do, I've just got small amounts here. So not a huge glob of paint, because I'm going to alter the green and the yellow that are on here. And I don't need to keep them clean, as long as I keep my source clean, which you guys have little souffle cups at your table. Those are what you want to keep clean, because if those get contaminated, then you've got a dirty paint source, and you don't want a dirty paint source. So looking at these colors, the green is darker than the yellow. So I want to, if I take the yellow into the green, it's going to take forever. So I'm going to take the green bit by bit, just a little tiny bit, and mix it with my yellow. And I want to just kind of keep an eye. So I'm going to show you. Let's see if. So I've started to mix it here a little bit. My brush is wet. And what I'm looking for is a nice mix. Now, this green that I have here was like one little brush. You know, I dipped it in, and look how much of that yellow that green is taking. to change. So just that little bit of green that I had on my brush. So I'm looking for a color now that I feel is a good mix of yellowish green, something that I would call a yellow green. And I think I'm just about there, which you can see, like I said, like one brush of that phthalo green darkened it up and ate up about half of my pile of yellow. But that's okay. So I want to make sure that I mix enough because, again, like I said, I'm going to have to do shades and tints of this color as well. And if you don't mix enough, like there's no way that I'll be able to, if I run out of paint, make this exact color again. So I want to make sure that I mix enough that I want to make sure that I mix enough so that I can make the shades and the tints accurately as well. So I would say that I'm probably going to have a primary and a secondary color at the direct north, south, east, west orientation. So I'm going to pick this guy here. And I've decided to change it up a little bit. And I'm going to make Scrappy Doo. I'm going to paint his body. The base color. And then I'm going to paint his head, the tint. And then I'm going to paint his tail and like his back leg, the shade. I'm just kind of blending in some of those rough spots. So there we go. Now I'm just going to double check to make sure that I have everything painted, because now I'm going to begin to add white and black. Ugh. A little crusty up there. So again, just a small amount of white and black. And I'm going to start with my white because black is one of the most dominating colors. Well, it's not even a color, it's a value. But I'm going to take a little bit of this green. Now I want to make sure that I've got a difference, that there's a difference between the base color and the tint of the base color. So this is mostly white with just a smallest hint of green. So now I'm going to take a little bit more of that green because I want to make a little bit more. I want to ensure that I have enough color in there. I want to ensure that I have enough paint mixed up so that I'm able to paint his whole head. And that's probably more than enough. And I want to make sure. Now I'm kind of pressing my brush into the palette now so that I don't have any like green hiding inside the brush where I'm going to make a brush stroke and then it's going to make a dark green mark all the way across. So now I've got my lighter green. Very nice. So when I'm done with this, I'm actually going to go through and I'm going to trace with Sharpie all of these pencil lines that I have. So I'm not really concerned like if I go outside the lines a little bit, when I go back over and Sharpie it, it's going to hide those rough spots. So, I mean, I don't want to go crazy sloppy, but a little bit outside the edge is not a big deal. And especially like here, like I'm going to color in with Sharpie. I'm going to color in his whole nose. So if I want to, I can paint that whole thing. Now, his eyes, I am going to leave the white of his eyes. I'm going to try to leave that white. So I want to be a little bit careful as I navigate that area. Yeah, I missed a little bit there. Not a big deal, though. And I'm just going to kind of smooth out the rest of that paint. And I'm going to do his collar. I'm going to make that the tint as well. So there we go. So I'm going to wash my brush. I'm going to dry my brush. And now I'm going to go back through and I'm going to make my shade. So I'm going to take a little bit of black and I'm going to mix it with that green. Now, I don't want it so dark that I can't tell what the base color originally was. But I want it dark enough so that I can clearly tell a difference between the shade and the base value. Now I'm being very careful. I got a little splotch of white in that green. I don't want to pick that up accidentally because then that's going to change the hue. It's going to change the color. Actually, it's just going to contaminate it. It's not really going to change the hue, but it's going to dilute the amount of green that's in the paint, and it's going to become like a gray base with a green hue. All right, so this is just green paint, the green that I mixed, the yellow green with black added for the shade. So now I'm going to paint his little feet. Oh, man. Accidentally dipped my paper in paint. Oh, well. And I'm going to do his collar also in the shade. And I'm going to rinse my brush. So there you can see the tint on his head, the base color of his body, and then the shade on the paw and the tail and the other paw and the collar. So now let's get into these what do I call them? Whatever they are, I don't remember. It's been a long day. Gradient scales. That's what they are, the gradient scales. So let's get into these. So my first one, remember, I wrote down my plan earlier, and I double-checked it with this. So I looked at this, and I planned out what I was going to do. So now I know that this is right, so I don't have to think about which one is which. I'm just going to follow my plan, and that's it. So blue and green. So that's a primary into a secondary. So I'm going to take my paint tray. If I wanted to, I could clear that out. I don't think I'll need it anymore. But whatever. Or another cool trick, a nice thing, because this is styrofoam, and you're going to use meat trays that are also styrofoam. If this dries, it'll just peel right off because it's acrylic paint. So I'm going blue into green. And get my phthalo blue. Nope, sorry. Phthalo green. This is phthalo blue. So just a little bit, not much. Actually, that's a lot more than I probably need, but it's my paint. So, actually, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use a ruler. Oh, here we go. Oh, I was looking for this one. Nice. So I'm going to divide this. Oh, mine's only 9 inches. That's right. I gave myself 1.5 inches on the edge. So you're going to have 10 inches. So I'll make a mark at 5. I'll make a mark every inch. And then that's how I'm going to know when to make the change. So I'm going to fix my version. Because when I did this, I thought I only wanted it to be 9 inches, but it turns out that 10 inches works better. So that's why mine is wrong, or that's why mine is different from what I told you guys originally. So I'm just going to very quickly fix this. There we go. And I'm not making lines straight through the center because I do want this to blend smoothly. But so I've just lined it up with 0 and put just a little tick mark at every inch. So with blue and green, excuse me, with blue and green, it's tough. With yellow, it's easy to figure out which one is going to be the dominant color, which one is going to be the darker color. But here, I mean, that's looking at my screen, I can't even tell which is which. I mean, obviously, I can see a difference looking at it, but when I see it up there, it's hard to tell. So I'm going to start with blue. And I'm going to, so there's my blue. I'm going to wash my brush. Dexter. No. Good talk. And I'm going to go, so I've washed my brush. I'm going to do the green. And again, if it's not like, you get some corners that are questionable here, I can take a Sharpie around them and kind of fix them up. So now I've got my two bookends. So now I want to make these meet. So I'm going to take a little bit of blue and I'm going to add it to the green so that I'm just changing it a little bit. And it should be just a slight transition. So now I'm going to take a little bit more blue and I'm going to add it. So here's where I'm mixing those colors. So now that I've come off the green a little bit, I'm going to go back and I'm going to work 2 steps into the blue. Add a little bit more green. And just a little bit more green. Now I can see that my green changes too fast. So I'm going to continue to work from the blue toward the green. And then when I get to the stuff that I've already made, when I get to the green that's already there, I'm going to go over it with green. Clean my brush up. So add a little bit more green to that blue. And also, when you paint, very important to not do your edges first. You don't want to put the paintbrush down right on a corner. You want to kind of put it in the middle and then push the paint to the edges or to the corners. A lot more control that way. So I'm going to take a little bit more green and mix it into my blue. And then now I'm going to blend a little bit. I'm going to take some more green and kind of soften that up a little bit. So again, I'm not, even though I made a mark at every inch, I don't necessarily want to see, this is a gradation. So this should be a smooth transition. So if you have to, like I just, as I was painting some of these, I would paint like 2 or 3 inches, not maybe not 3, 2, and maybe 3, maybe I'm at 3. So I'm gonna wash my brush and show you now what this looks like. So this is a very smooth, and because this is a primary into a secondary, those are two very similar colors. So now let's do the monochromatic. So I've already got black and white on my paint tray. What did I want to do for my monochromatic? Oh, I want to do blue. All right, I've still got some clean blue over here. So I'm going to salvage that. I'm going to scoop that up and put it here by itself. There we go. So here's my blue, and then I've got my black and white that I can pull from too. Those are still clean. So with the monochromatic, we're going to start in the middle, unlike the primary to secondary through the tertiaries, where we started on the end and kind of worked our way towards the center. I'm going to put that color, the base color, in the middle, and then I'm going to work to the left is going to be tints, and then to the right is going to be shades. Oops. So I'm going to put the base color down right in the middle. Oh, you know what I got to do? I got to fix the rest of these. We'll do that real quick. So add those extra ½ inch to the edge of each one. There we go. Clean that up. There we go. So now, our monochromatic with blue. I'm going to start with blue. Make sure I'm in the middle. So there's 5 right there. So make a little notch at 5. And then I'll paint and like I said, because this is a gradient, you notice that it's not a perfectly clean square. So I'm going to take actually, I should. Yeah, I'm going to. So I'm going to scrape this white off to the side, and I'm going to use every little bit of that white. I'm going to turn into so I'm going to add just a little bit of blue, like a baby blue. And I'm going to take some of that white, some of that, well, that very, very light blue. I'm going to put it in. And then I'm going to add some more blue to it. And now here's the tough part. So I've painted the darker blue. You can see I've got that line. I've got to go back in and pick up some of that lighter stuff and go back over the darker blue that I've painted. Because I want it to blend. So anytime I put a lighter color down, anytime I need to lighten up a color, I got to make sure that my brush is absolutely clean. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So there we go. There's a little bit of blending. I'm going to take some of that darker blue that I've already mixed up. I want to stretch that out a little bit more. And then I'm going to take some more blue into that, darken it up a bit. Now with acrylic paint, you want to kind of work fast because once it dries, that's it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean my brush, and while my paint is still kind of wet, I'm going to take that brush and kind of go over and I'm going to soften. So I clean my brush. My paint was still kind of wet. Wash my brush, and then just very lightly kind of dust it over so that I don't see any of those brush strokes. So now here's the connector, the one that's going to link my solid blue to those tints. Just a little bit lighter. And again, going to go back through so you can see pretty smooth from here, but then right there it's got a hard line. So again, clean my brush, and then you can see this just very lightly kind of scrub over that. Maybe scrub is the wrong word to use, but just like the bristles are just moving that paint enough to soften that line. So I might want to do that here if my paint is still wet and cooperative. And if it's not, I'm not going to fight it. So there we go. So there's my fix that a little bit. There's my tints of blue. So now I'm going to go through and I'm going to put my shades of blue now. So I'm going to use what blue I have. So these are all, this is where I did my mixing for my tints. This is still pure blue. So I'm going to take bit by bit, I'm going to take that black and I'm going to just bring it into here and try not to pull any of this stuff into that blue that I have there. Hey, I'm doing a video. What's up? Okay, I'll see you in a bit. Love you, bye. It's my wife. Had to take that one. So I'm going to take my black, like I said, just a little bit. And I'm going to mix it in there. I don't think that made a change. I'm going to take a little bit more black. Not too much, though. Am I holding this so that you guys can see it? All right, there we go. A little bit darker. And a little bit darker. A little bit more black in there. Whoops. There we go. And I'm going to wash my brush. And just like before, I'm going to take the wet, clean brush, and I'm going to kind of just dust it over so that I get a nice blending. And I'm going to take a little bit more black and mix it to what I already have. And then I'm going to take a lot of black. I'll put it in there. So now again, I'm just going to take my brush, and I can feel that the paint is starting to dry on my brush. I can feel it kind of grabbing a little bit. So I'm going to drag that black across. So there we have our gradient scale going black to white, or actually very dark blue to very light blue. So that's the monochromatic. So for the next two, the complementary and then the primary, secondary, primary, those are going to mix just like that first one, where you'll start your colors on either end and then you'll kind of work towards the center. Now I want to see, before I wrap this up, just throw it on the floor. I'm going to grab a Sharpie here. Brand new. Lucky boy. So I'm going to trace this Scrappy Doo in Sharpie, and I'll show you. I want to make sure, and this is huge too. As you paint, your hand's going to be going all kind of places. Make sure that you're not dipping your hand in wet paint. So I am not. So I'm going to trace Scrappy-Doo. And the other cool thing is if you screw up on your colors, if you paint the color wheel out of order, we can always just finish painting and then cut it out and then glue it back together in the right order. So easy to fix mistakes on this assignment. Almost done. And there it is. So you can see what a difference that makes. So that's what it'll look like when I'm done. So there's a lot of work to this project, but it's not difficult if you think about what you're doing before you do it, and that'll help keep you from making mistakes. So I hope this helps. I hope you picked up some tips, and good luck with your painting.